how does the Pro V1 and the Pro V1x compare to the Taylormade TP5 and TP5x? So I'm going to hit a few shots with the Pro V1, Pro V1x, TP5 and TP5x just to see what the difference in spin rate, consistency. I'm going to hit wedges, 7-iron and driver just to see how they all compare to each other because I am quite curious. Now one thing I will do is I'm not going to hit the same ball twice in a row. So I'm just not colder and warmer from one ball to another. Oh, nip that nice. So I've done videos basically looking at the Pro V1 against the Pro V1x and the TP5 against the TP5x separately. But how do they do when they go toe to toe? That was a bit of a drop kick. So I'm not necessarily doing it in the same order every time. I'm just picking a ball just so I can feed them into the data source and get a realistic comparison of what just the golf ball on its own does. Nips that one nice. Now I've always thought of the Taylormade TP5 to be like the Pro V1 and the TP5X to be like the Pro V1X. But is that correct? Because I did find some alternative data in my previous tests. So we're getting them toe to toe just to see how they differ. Nice. Even though it's thin, that's pretty close. And the final TP5. So 50-yard shot, we're seeing the highest spin with these two golf balls, which are the TP5 and the Pro V1x. That is consistent with my other tests. Between the two, we've got the TP5 spinning just that little bit more than the Pro V1x, which is quite nice to see, and only varying a little bit in terms of carry. We've got 2 yards more with the Pro V1x. Lowest launch, highest spin with the TP5, which is normally the sort of comparison that we see. We see lower launch and higher spin, or we see higher launch and lower spin. As you can see here, the Pro V1 is the highest launching golf ball between all these, and it has the lowest spin in the spectrum. Let's see how we got on with a 7-iron. So 7-iron, about 180 yards for me. Let's see how we go. Pro V1. A little bit of a high push. TP5. Similar sort of shot, high and right. Just moving back to the pin, nearly on the center line. So I've got a sneaky feeling that it's not Pro V1 to TP5 by comparison. I think it's the opposite. I think the TP5 compares to the Pro V1x a lot better, and the Pro V1 compares to the TP5x a lot better. We'll see that more specifically in a second, but that's my prediction of difference. TP5x. But even if that is the case and they're the most comparable balls, which one's better? Which one's longer, shorter, more spinning, less spinning for me? We're back to the Pro V1. TP5. I'm hitting quite similar shots, which is good. We'll go Pro V1x. A little bit of a push. Pro V1. TP5x. Little shank. Definitely going to delete that one. That doesn't include. Okay, so I'm hitting the same ball again. That's a bit more like it. I actually hit the club face. And one more with each golf ball. Same flight. Same flight again. Just need one more with the TP5X because of that little shank. Very nice, fairly consistent direction, fairly consistent strike apart from that one. Gives us some quite nice numbers to work from. So we've got a little bit more distance in the TP5X with a bit more ball speed. TP5 a little bit slower, so strikes might have just taken the edge off that. It's not lost too much, but it is got a slightly more spin. Pro V1X, most spin, most control into the green. Now I would be looking for about 5,500 to 6,500 spin with a 7-iron. So I'm liking the Pro V1X in that pool of data for me if I was doing a ball fitting, because that spin's just more in the middle of that ideal window. If you were getting too much spin, for example, you'd be looking more like these ones to tame it. And same as the wedge, I'm getting the highest launch with the Pro V1 and I'm getting the lowest launch with the TP5. Just that Pro V1X maintaining a bit more spin on its lower launch compared to the TP5. But all these three are in and around the same sort of area. They're not varying too much. Main thing is that TP5X maybe with a slightly harder core with a bit more rebound off it, just maintaining a bit more ball speed on there, mixed with strike obviously. So I'm just putting in my shaft shaft of choice because I've got a different one in here because I've been testing. But what is happening with the driver and these golf balls? So starting with the Pro V1, I've got the Ventus Velocore 6X in the Srixon ZX5 Mark II low spin. And I've got quite a low spinning knuckle draw flying up that left hand side, not too shy. Then we go TP5, I'm going to keep all my intentions the same. Similar sort of flight, high draw, fairly low spin. Then we go Pro V1x. Same sort of flight, little draw, much lower spin, much lower spin. With the driver, I'm looking at spin rates and I'm also looking at ball speed because the cores have different squash rates, so they squash and release off the face differently. A harder core for me might squash and release a bit faster, a softer core might squash and release a little bit slower. But again, everyone's in a different spectrum for that. All quite comparable shapes. I'm hitting that little draw with all of them. I've just gradually got more towards the target. Ball speed spiked up with that one. But again, that's why I'm alternating the golf balls, just to make sure I'm not fastest at the end of the test. Strike not great, slightly high on the face, but still 162 ball speed. Whee, get on the green. Nice. TP5. Bit of a push draw, still maintaining that draw shape. So I'm not saying too much about the ball speeds and the spin rates just yet, because I really want to see right at the end what they are comparatively. Definitely quite fast off the face, that one. TP5x, turned over a little bit too much. So the only thing I want to do with this driver is put a bigger grip on it, but we're looking at golf balls. Oh, that's very low spin. The odd one of them does come out when you've got a low spin driver. I see it quite a lot with the Taylormade Stealth and Stealth 2, where just the odd shot just goes blur, dips to the ground really quickly. I'm going to go again on that one and discount that shot because it's only gone 230. More like it, arrow straight, tiny bit of fade, still under 2000 spin. So I just need a few more balls. TP5x. Oh, a little bit off the heel. I've got a bit of fade on that. Still gone all right, but the spin's crept up to 2100. Because it was a heel strike and it's not got my normal draw, I am going to do that shot again. There we go, little draw, slightly higher. Oh, absolutely traveling. Get up, get on there, on the surface. Back to the TP5, going for my little draw still. Little draw, well, a little bit extra draw. Ball speed nice and healthy. Nice draw, dipping a bit quicker. Ball speed nice and healthy again. So we're getting the odd shot from the odd ball that just spins not enough and it dips quicker and hits the ground earlier. Gets a nice amount of run on it, but it's not very good if you're trying to get up and over something. So if there's a golf ball that's low spin, it might be too low spin. It might be the odd shot that just dips, doesn't go as far as it should. So there is an optimum window of spin. So you need to try these things out for yourself to see what suits you. I need one more Pro V1, and then I've got a good grouping of shots, all with the same sort of shape on them. And a nice little draw again. Ball speed a little bit down. Launch characteristics very solid. So not bad looking at that. So we've got the ball speeds are quite different. The Pro V1x is definitely the fastest ball there. Pro V1x and TP5x, fastest balls. Probably because I've got a harder core that doesn't squash as much, giving me just that little bit more rebound off the face. With a slower swing speed, you might find that they don't rebound enough and you don't get enough ball speed. So you need to hit them just to see what happens for you. Pro V1, highest launching ball, 15.5. We've got the lowest launching ball here, Pro V1x, lowest spinning as well. So that does mean that it hits the ground a little bit earlier than these two, because I'm looking for about 1800 to 2000. So because these are all below 2000, the one that spins the least drops and hits the ground quickest. So even though that's the fastest ball speed, I need to get my launch angle up. So the loft on that driver isn't good enough to use this golf ball. I'd need to change the club to suit this ball. In that club with its current setup, I'm looking at one of these two golf balls because we've got decent distance, decent carry on both of them, because that spin is just that little bit higher than this, even though they're slower. So the Taylormades compared to each other, we've got more distance on the TP5X, mainly because that ball speed sort of like carries it through. Between the Pro V1, Pro V1x, we're seeing lower spin with the Pro V1x, which is consistent with what I saw before, even though the Pro V1x spins more with a wedge and with an eye in it, spins less with a driver. And that is something that's been very consistent in every test. Last time I tried the Taylormade TP5 and TP5x, I actually had a lower spin with the TP5, so it could be that I've overturned a couple of these a bit more. So because I've got more speed on the TP5x, it's getting me that little bit further, because this is near that 1800 mark that I'm after. It's not too far under it. The reason that 1600 is manageable is because that launch is a little bit higher. So for me, the best balls here are these three at the bottom, because the distance is maintained a bit more. This one just dropping off a little bit too much. I did have a different driver last time I tested the TP5 and TP5X. I had a different shaft in the club. So now I've got the Velocore shaft, which is lower spinning. It's just brought me down too much. It's just brought me a little bit slower, a little bit away from what's ideal. So I possibly need to use that on a higher loft.